Every great thing that's ever happened in this world, every invention, every breakthrough, every moment that changed humanity started with something incredibly fragile, a dream, a flicker of imagination, a picture in someone's mind that didn't make sense to anyone else at the time. The interesting thing about dreams is that they often come to us when we're not even looking for them. They appear in quiet moments, or sometimes when we least expect them. And yet, those moments have the power to completely redirect the course of a life. He dreamt of you. That's how this story begins. Not with a plan, not with a roadmap, but with a vision. Something almost too vivid to ignore. It wasn't logical, it wasn't measured, but it was powerful. He woke up with that feeling, you know the one? When your heart's beating faster than your mind can catch up. It's the moment when you realize that what you saw wasn't just a dream, it was a possibility calling out to be found. Dreams are not random. They're signals from the deeper parts of ourselves, the parts that still believe in what could be. Most people see a dream as something nice, something distant, a story to tell and forget. But for the rare few, a dream is a command. It's a whisper from the future saying, "Come find me." Those are the people who end up changing things, because they don't just dream, they act. You see, the difference between a dreamer and a seeker is action. Anyone can dream. It takes courage to wake up and say, "I'm going to find that." That's where the story of the search begins. When he dreamt of you, it wasn't about fantasy. It was about purpose. There was something magnetic about it, something that made the world feel smaller, almost as if everything suddenly started aligning around this invisible mission. And that's what a real dream does. It gives direction to energy. It gives form to chaos. It makes you move. People often talk about logic and reason as if they're the only tools that shape progress. But logic alone doesn't create rockets, or art, or love. Logic refines, it doesn't ignite. A dream is the spark. It's irrational, inconvenient, sometimes even uncomfortable. But it's the seed of everything meaningful we've ever built. Think about it. At some point, every human advancement, every invention, every great story started as someone's impossible vision. That's why dreams are sacred. They're not childish fantasies. They're the early blueprints of the future. And when someone dreams deeply enough, they connect with something universal. A frequency that speaks not just to what exists, but to what should exist. He saw that in his dream. It wasn't just an image of you. It was a symbol of everything he's been missing, everything he's meant to discover. The dream became a compass. And that's when the energy shifts. Because once you've seen a glimpse of what could be, you can't unsee it. It stays with you. It haunts you in the best way possible. It drives you to move, to search, to risk comfort for the chance of something extraordinary. He didn't choose the dream chose him. That's how it works. The moment you realize something bigger than you is pulling you forward, the question is no longer, can I? It becomes, how soon can I start? That's the real power of a dream. It transforms hesitation into hunger. It breaks down logic and replaces it with faith and momentum. Every day after that dream, he wasn't just living. He was aligning himself with something greater. Every decision, every thought, every step started pointing toward that vision. And whether he understood it or not, the search had already begun. Dreams don't hand you the destination. They hand you the desire to move toward it. They're the invitation to become someone capable of finding what you saw. That's why the most valuable thing anyone can have isn't a plan. It's a dream that refuses to leave them alone. Because if you're brave enough to follow it, if you're willing to trust that the impossible vision you once saw has meaning, you'll eventually realize something extraordinary. The dream isn't asking you to wait for the world to change. It's asking you to be the one who changes it. At some point, every dream demands an answer. You wake up with the memory of it still burning in your mind, and for a moment, you try to shake it off. You tell yourself it was just a dream, just imagination. But something inside you refuses to let it go. It's like a small constant signal, quiet but persistent, reminding you that you've seen something worth chasing. That's where the call to search begins. It doesn't start with certainty, it starts with curiosity. With that small question echoing in your head, what if it's real? What if that vision, that person, that purpose you saw isn't just some random fragment of thought, but an actual direction? Something waiting for you to find it? Most people ignore that call. They go back to their routines, convincing themselves that the dream will fade, that it's safer to stay where they are. But for a few people, the call becomes impossible to ignore. It grows louder, like gravity pulling them towards something unseen, but deeply familiar. And when that happens, life changes. You can't look at the world the same way anymore. Everything starts to feel like a clue, every coincidence like a message. You begin to notice patterns, connections, signs, not because the universe suddenly rearranged itself, but because your mind has started tuning into a higher frequency. The dream lit a beacon, and now you're following it. That's the power of the call to search. It doesn't ask politely, it commands. Here's the truth: most of the time, you won't know where you're going, you won't have a map, or a timeline, or any guarantee that you'll find what you're looking for. But that uncertainty is exactly what makes the journey worth it. Because in searching for something greater, you start to evolve, you learn to trust movement more than comfort. You realize that clarity doesn't come before action, it comes from action. When he woke up from that dream, he didn't have answers, he just had a feeling, an unshakable sense that the world was asking him to move. So he did. Step by step, following intuition more than logic, heart more than reason. That's how all searches begin. Not with a grand plan, but with a decision. I have to find this. Every searcher faces resistance. People will question why you're chasing something they can't see. They'll tell you to be realistic, to stay grounded. But being realistic has never built the future. Every great discovery came from someone who refused to accept the world exactly as it is. Searching isn't about rejecting reality. It's about believing there's more to it. And there will be days when the call feels distant, when the dream seems too far away to matter. You'll doubt yourself. You'll question whether you misunderstood the signal, whether it was all in your head. But the call never disappears. It may go quiet, but it never dies. Because it's not just a call to find something external. It's a call to uncover what's been dormant inside you. The search for you becomes the search for the best version of yourself. The call to search doesn't wait for ideal conditions. It doesn't care if you're ready. It just demands motion. The moment you take that first uncertain step, the universe begins to respond. You meet people who align with your direction, stumble into opportunities you couldn't have planned, and suddenly realize that the dream wasn't a random event. It was a starting point. A signal meant to awaken the part of you that remembers what it feels like to want something deeply. That's why searching is so powerful. It strips away the illusion of control and replaces it with discovery. You start to see that the point was never to know where you were going. It was to become someone who would dare to go at all. Every risk, every mistake, every moment of doubt is part of the navigation system guiding you toward meaning. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real purpose of the dream. Not to hand you what you desire, but to pull you out of complacency and push you into movement. Because when you move, when you search, when you stop waiting for perfect answers and start following imperfect intuition, you begin to bridge the gap between what you saw and what can be. The call to search is more than a moment. It's a declaration. It's life whispering. You were never meant to stay still. Every search worth taking eventually meets its shadow, doubt. No one talks about it enough, but it's there, waiting quietly at the edge of every dream. It shows up the moment the excitement fades and reality starts asking for proof. Doubt doesn't arrive to destroy you. It arrives to test whether you actually mean it, whether the dream is just a fantasy you enjoyed, or a vision you're willing to fight for. When he first set out to find what he saw in that dream, everything felt electric, full of possibility. But as days turned into months, and months stretched into years, something started to creep in. The silence, the not knowing, the endless questions that echo in your head late at night. What if I imagined it? What if I'm chasing something that doesn't exist? What if I'm wrong? Those questions are brutal. They don't just challenge your goal. They challenge your identity. Every innovator, every dreamer, every explorer has been through this. It's the phase where the excitement fades and the grind begins. The vision that once lit up your mind now feels distant, and every obstacle starts to whisper the same message to turn back. But that's exactly when you find out who you really are, because anyone can believe when things are easy. Real belief is forged when there's no visible reason to keep going. Doubt has a strange way of disguising itself as reason. It tells you to be practical, to slow down, to stop risking so much. It makes you look around and see everyone else living comfortably and wonder why you're the one walking a harder path. But progress doesn't come from comfort. Progress is born in the moments when you're uncomfortable enough to question everything, yet strong enough to keep moving anyway. He faced those moments, the failures, the rejections, the silence from the world that once seemed full of signals. But deep down, he also realized something powerful. Doubt and faith are not enemies, they coexist. Doubt doesn't mean you've lost faith, it means your faith is being refined. Every time you push through uncertainty, you're strengthening the muscle that will carry you through the next storm. People think the search ends when you find what you're looking for. But the truth is, the search is the transformation. The hard days, the lonely days, the times you almost quit, those are the moments that shape you into the kind of person capable of handling the very thing you're chasing. If everything came easily, you wouldn't grow into it. You'd collapse under its weight. There's a quote that says, "Rockets don't lift off because the conditions are perfect. They lift off because they're built to withstand imperfection." That's the same with dreams. You can't wait for certainty. You have to launch through friction, through fear, through the noise of self-doubt. You have to trust that momentum will carry you higher than hesitation ever could. Sometimes doubt isn't even external. It's the inner voice that says you're not enough, that you're too late, too inexperienced, too small to make an impact. But that voice only has power if you listen to it. The moment you stop negotiating with doubt and start acting in spite of it, you become unstoppable. Because the truth is, you don't need to eliminate fear to move forward. You just need to stop letting it drive. He kept going. Not because the path got easier, but because the dream refused to leave him alone. And that's what sustains you in the journey through doubt. That burning reminder that the thing you saw, the thing you felt, matters. Even if no one else believes it yet, it's real enough for you to keep building toward it. At some point, doubt stops feeling like an enemy and starts feeling like fuel. You realize it's proof that you're attempting something worth doing. Because if it didn't scare you, it wouldn't be big enough. The dreamer who never doubts is still asleep. The seeker who feels doubt but walks anyway, that's the one who changes everything. So when you hit that wall of uncertainty, don't turn back. Don't slow down. That resistance you feel is the universe checking your resolve, making sure you're ready for what's ahead. Keep walking. Keep building. Keep searching. Because beyond the noise of doubt lies the one thing that started it all. The dream that refuses to die. At some point in every search, there comes a quiet realization. The moment you begin to see that what you've been chasing might not be something outside of you at all. Maybe it's not a person, not a destination, not even a tangible thing. Maybe what you've been searching for has been a reflection of yourself all along. That's what makes the journey so fascinating. You start out looking for you, but somewhere along the way, you begin to realize that you was always looking back. When he dreamt of you, he thought he was being called toward someone, an image, an ideal, maybe even a soulmate. But as the search deepened, the line between the dream and the dreamer began to blur. What if the you he saw wasn't another person, but a version of himself he hadn't yet met? The one who was braver, wiser, more awake. The one who lived without hesitation or fear. That's the paradox of the search. You think you're following a signal that's out there somewhere in the universe, when really it's guiding you back to the core of who you are. It's human nature to project our hopes outward. We imagine the dream as something to find. A job, a relationship, a destination, a moment of success. But the real discovery happens inward. Because every time you move closer to what you're searching for, you start uncovering layers of yourself you didn't know existed. You start realizing that what you admired out there, the strength, the clarity, the beauty, has been quietly waiting inside you all along. The dream was just a mirror powerful enough to make you see it. That's why the journey is never just about the destination. It's about evolution. You begin as one version of yourself, but every step changes you, sometimes subtly, sometimes radically. Every obstacle you face, every bit of doubt you overcome, every small act of faith you take, it all shapes the reflection staring back at you. You become the very thing you were searching for. When he finally understood that, everything shifted. He stopped searching with desperation and started moving with awareness. The journey wasn't about finding you anymore. It was about becoming worthy of what he saw in that dream. And that's the most powerful thing any human being can do, transform the search for something external into the creation of something internal. Because the truth is, we don't chase dreams to possess them. We chase them to become the kind of person who can live them. The reflection of you is not just a face in a dream. It's a symbol of potential, a reminder that there's more within you than you've dared to believe. The dream doesn't show you something foreign. It reveals what's familiar but forgotten. And when you begin to see that clearly, you start moving differently. You stop trying to prove your worth to the world and start expressing it instead. You stop chasing validation and start embodying vision. That's when life starts aligning, not because everything suddenly gets easier, because you finally understand that the journey and the destination are reflections of the same truth. The person you're becoming is the thing you've been searching for. It's easy to forget this when the search gets hard. When you feel lost, when progress feels invisible, you start to think you've strayed too far. But even then, you're still in the process. Because every step, even the wrong ones, reflects something vital, your willingness to keep going. And that willingness is proof that the dream is alive within you. He didn't realize it at first, but the dream wasn't showing him someone else's face. It was showing him the person he could be, the one who would dare, who would search, who would grow. The you in his dream was never separate. It was the reflection of his own becoming. And maybe that's what all dreams really are. Not messages from somewhere far away, but mirrors from the future, showing us what's possible if we're brave enough to evolve toward it. So if you ever find yourself searching for meaning, for connection, for purpose, remember this. The moment you begin to see yourself in what you're chasing, that's when you've already begun to find it. Because the dream you're chasing isn't running away from you. It's waiting for you to catch up. There's a point in every search where something subtle but irreversible happens. The shift from chasing to becoming. In the beginning, it's all about the goal, the dream, the image of what you want to find. You move with urgency, with obsession, thinking the reward is at the end of the road. But over time, something changes. The longer you walk, the more you realize that the real prize isn't what you find, it's who you become along the way. He started this journey with a single dream, a vision that pulled him forward. But as the miles added up, he began to notice that the person doing the searching wasn't the same as the one who began it. The fear that once held him back started to dissolve. The uncertainty that used to paralyze him became fuel. That's the quiet magic of transformation. It doesn't announce itself. It builds through repetition, through failure, through persistence. You wake up one day and realize that the person you've become would never have hesitated at the places where you once stopped. Transformation doesn't happen when you find what you're looking for. It happens in the process of looking. It's in the sleepless nights, the rejections, the endless adjustments. It's in every moment you wanted to quit but didn't. Each of those moments leaves an imprint reshaping who you are. And slowly, you begin to understand that the search isn't just about discovering something new. It's about remembering your own capacity to change. Most people underestimate how much they can evolve when they stay committed to something that matters. The world rewards results, but the universe rewards growth. You might not see progress day to day, but underneath the surface, everything is shifting. The way you think, the way you feel, the way you respond to uncertainty, all of it is being recalibrated. And before you even realize it, the search stops being a pursuit and becomes a transformation. He started noticing it in small ways. The decisions that once terrified him now felt instinctive. The criticism that used to sting became feedback. Even failure, the thing he used to fear most, began to look like data, like a natural part of the design process. Because once you've faced enough setbacks and kept going, you stop seeing obstacles as walls. You start seeing them as shaping forces. They're not there to stop you, they're there to refine you. That's what transformation really is, refinement through resistance. You learn to see every challenge as part of the blueprint for who you're becoming. Every detour adds a layer of resilience. Every disappointment deepens your understanding. Every success reminds you that persistence is the only real superpower. And through it all, the dream that once felt like an external destination starts to feel like an internal awakening. The most extraordinary part is that transformation often sneaks up on you. It's not about having one defining moment where everything changes. It's about 1,000 small moments that slowly rewire your identity. One day you catch yourself doing something with confidence that you never thought you could. You realize that the person who started the search would be in awe of who you've become. That's when you know the search has done its work. And it's interesting because once you transform, the dream itself changes shape. It evolves with you. The you who began the journey couldn't have imagined what you see now. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. The purpose of the dream was never to stay static. It was to guide your growth. It wasn't there to give you answers. It was there to expand your capacity to live the questions. By the time he looked back, he realized something profound. He wasn't chasing the same thing anymore. The dream that once felt unreachable had become part of him. The search had carved out space inside him for clarity, courage, and vision. And even though he hadn't reached the end, he was no longer the man who needed to. He had already become someone new, someone who didn't just dream, but built the bridge between vision and reality. That's what the transformation in the search is about. It's the alchemy of persistence, the quiet turning of struggle into strength, of longing into purpose. The dream starts the journey, but the journey shapes the dreamer. And when that happens, when you've been reshaped by what you've endured, sharpened by what you've learned, and lifted by what you've dared to believe, you realize something truly powerful. You weren't just searching for the dream. The dream was searching for the person you were meant to become. There's always a moment, one that doesn't arrive with fireworks or applause, but with a kind of stillness. The moment of realization. It's not something you can force, and it rarely looks the way you imagine it will. It comes quietly, after all the noise, after the doubt, after the endless movement. It's that instant when the search stops feeling like a chase and starts feeling like understanding. You stop asking, when will I find it? And start realizing, I already have. For him, that moment didn't happen at the end of the road or on some mountaintop of success. It came in the middle of the journey, during one of those rare silences when the world slows down, just enough for you to hear your own thoughts clearly. He had been chasing a dream, convinced that the reward was out there, somewhere, waiting to be discovered. But what he didn't realize until that moment was that every step, every setback, every piece of the journey had been teaching him how to see differently. That's the irony of the search. You spend so long looking outward that you forget what's happening inward. You think you're searching for something distant, but in truth, the process has been transforming your perception the whole time. The moment of realization is when you finally see that connection. When you understand that the dream wasn't a destination, it was a signal guiding you toward who you were always meant to be. He remembered the dream vividly, the image that set everything in motion. For years, that vision was the compass, the reason he kept going. But now, looking back, he could see that the dream had done its job. It didn't need to be found, it needed to awaken him. What he was searching for wasn't a place or a person. It was the version of himself capable of seeing meaning where others saw uncertainty, of building possibility where others saw limits. That's what realization feels like. It's not the joy of arrival, it's the calm of awareness. You suddenly understand why every detour mattered, why every failure had to happen, why the dream never appeared exactly the way you pictured it. Because if it had, you wouldn't have grown into the person ready to receive it. The dream was never testing your ability to find it. It was testing your willingness to become worthy of it. In that quiet moment, everything connects. You start to see that the challenges weren't barriers, they were blueprints. The pain wasn't punishment, it was preparation, and the waiting wasn't wasted time. It was alignment. You realize that what you've been calling delays were actually lessons, perfectly timed to build the strength, patience, and vision you'd need to see clearly. That's the moment of realization, when you stop resisting the journey and start respecting it. He looked around and noticed that nothing about his circumstances had changed, but everything about his understanding had. The dream no longer felt like something beyond reach. It felt like something alive, breathing through every choice he made, every conversation, every quiet act of persistence. It was never about finding one moment of triumph. It was about learning to live in alignment with that original spark every day. And that's the point. The dream isn't supposed to end, it's supposed to evolve. The realization isn't a finish line, it's a doorway. It opens you to the understanding that your purpose was never about achieving something singular, but about continuing to create, to search, to push the boundaries of what's possible. Because once you've seen what you're capable of, you can't unsee it. Once you've realized that the dream was a mirror, reflecting your courage, your persistence, your belief, you can't go back to pretending you're small. In that moment, he understood that the search was never about finding you. It was about remembering that the dream had been inside him the whole time. The path, the people, the failures, the breakthroughs, all of it was conspiring to reveal that truth. He hadn't just found what he was looking for, he had become it. And maybe that's the greatest realization of all, that dreams aren't meant to be reached like destinations, but lived like transformations. Because once you've walked far enough, once you've doubted enough, once you've grown enough to see clearly, you realize something simple, profound and life-altering. The dream didn't end when you found it. It began the moment you understood it was already yours,